Today by 6 environmental champions from all different levels of government. In the sake of time, I'm going to politely request that they do not introduce themselves, but we are joined here today by New York State Senator Monica Martinez, Southold Town Supervisor, former Suffolk County Legislator Al Krupski, Suffolk County Executive, former Brookhaven Town Supervisor Ed Romaine, Suffolk County Legislator, former New York State Assemblyman Steve Englebright, current first term, I believe, Suffolk County Legislator Rebecca Sanin, and Town of East Hampton Deputy Supervisor Cate Rogers. Thank you so much for joining us here today. So we're going to start, we're all going to have a response to this first question. It's been alluded to in a few of the previous panels, and I'm sure we're all watching the news. Climate change is something that's here. It's happening now. We need to act now. But we have different levels of government responding in different ways to the climate emergency, especially in this current year. So the first question that I pose to all of you, and we could start with Cate and move down this way. During this time, what role does local government play, and for Senator Martinez, state government, play in responding to climate change when we have an action at the federal level? And we'll start with you, Cate.
Can you all hear me? So first, thank you for all coming. On a local level, East Hampton is kind of the canary in the coal mine, which is why we're so invested in transition to renewable energy. We face already many of the climate impacts from the climate crisis, southern pine beetle infestation, turning our forest into wildfire tinder. We're responding to that with the help of our government partners, rising seas, and more frequent storms. We have in East Hampton now high tides on sunny days that flood some of our streets. So we're keenly aware, and we're responding in any way that we can. The most important action that you can take on a local level is to come to town board meetings and talk to us and give us the backing we need from the community to make the changes that we need.
Thank you, Cate. Legislator, can you turn on the mic?
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
Sorry. Can do a lot of things, but apparently not work a mic. So happy to be here with all of you today. What I wanted to say to you is I have the privilege of serving on the EPA committee in the legislature, Environmental Parks and Agriculture, with my colleague Steve Englebright, with my colleague Ann Welker, who's here as well. And there are many things that we can do on a policy level. Certainly, you all know we live above our sole aquifer, and so making sure we're investing in our water quality and water protection is one of those things. Making sure that we are preserving land and we are not allowing overdevelopment on our island is another. I'm very, very proud to have worked with civic organizations in my district to preserve Stanhope Stables, which is an equestrian use facility in my district. These are things that we absolutely need to do to make sure that we are protecting our beautiful island and allowing the quality of life that folks want. But what I want to say to you today is that what I can do as a legislator is not so different than what you can do. While I have the ability to work on policies, it's really about amplifying our voice on climate change and making sure that at every level of government, but also every level of the community, our neighbors, our friends, and our families understand the power that they have every day, the impact that they have on the environment by the simple choices that we make, from how we deal with waste and recycling, to how we use our water, to how we eat even, right? In terms of how we make sure that we are protecting our environment. So we have the privilege of serving in government, but you have the power to make a difference. And I hope that more than anything today, that when you walk out of here, you feel empowered to know that you can make a huge, huge impact on climate change and on environmental safety and protection in your communities. And quite frankly, when you amplify your voices, your government officials, regardless of party, regardless of level of government, listen. And that's how we get things done. So super excited to learn from you about your advocacy as the day continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator.
So local government is where it all begins. Local government sets the agenda really for actions taken at higher levels of government. The grassroots really matters. It's wonderful, by the way, to see this grassroots turnout here today. 300 of you give us a chance to see the future. So it's really, it looks good from here. You all look great. So thank you for being here. Thank you for taking an interest. Get involved with local politics. It tends to be the misimpression that everything that is important in government happens at the national level. And so a lot of people, you know, just sort of overlook local government's role. But local government is what sets the pace for everything. So please get involved with sharing your thoughts and continue to improve your knowledge base and share it with your legislators. And by the way, some of you look like you might be future legislators. Consider public service and start at the local level.
Thank you, Legislator. County Executive.
Thank you. Wow. 17 schools, 235 students, 25 teachers. And you got here, you had to get up early because I think we started, what, you started about 7:30? Good luck. I almost feel that we're back in school. I used to be a teacher a long time ago. In fact, actually I taught on this campus as well. Climate change is real. This is my 40th year in elective office in Suffolk County. I started in 1985. I was elected legislature. I served with this gentleman a long time ago. Then I went on to serve 16 years as county clerk. Then I went back to the legislature. And I hadn't moved, but my district had changed. And I wound up representing Shelter Island, Southold, Riverhead, and all of Eastern Brookhaven. Then I got elected, served 12 years as Brookhaven Town Supervisor. And now I'm county executive. I'll just tell you a little story. We have some low-lying areas in Massac Beach, which is immediately south of here. I was running for supervisor, and Superstorm hit, and it hit in October of 2012. And about a day after the storm, I remember going down to Massac Beach. And if you know that area, there's an east-west road. It's kind of the main drag in Massac Beach called Neighborhood Road. Everything south of that was knee-deep in water. All the trees were down. The telephone wires were down. They were all sparking. And we were trying to get around to figure out how bad it was. It was pretty bad. But the thing that I remember the most is the smell. You don't forget the smell. Why? Because most of those homes had above ground oil tanks that were not strapped down, and they all turned over. And there was an oil slick on all that water. I was yelling at kids to get out of the street because they were wading through this. And the other thing is, because it has very shallow water, most of their cesspool waste above ground, oil, so it stunk of that and it smelled of oil. And it was an instructive lesson on me. And I realized the damage that could be done by a storm like that. And unfortunately, with climate change, we are seeing more storms like that. We're seeing more storms, and we live on an island. And a lot of our waterfront is threatened. Supervisor, we did a number of things. One of the things, fossil fuel is not the answer. There may be a lot of reasons for climate change, because climate change has happened throughout the centuries. If we didn't have climate change, how would people have got to North and South America? Remember, they crossed the land bridge? They crossed that land bridge because the ice caps that covered our planet had created a land bridge between Siberia and Alaska. So nature has its way, but guess what? We don't need to help nature out. We don't need to help nature out. So first thing we did is boom. We said, let's get all the marshland in Mastic Beach, buy it up because it will act as a sponge for the next storm. Second thing we did, let's take a look at alternatives. So Supervisor, I put solar on everything possible in the town of Brookhaven, on the roof of town hall, at the airport, at the ecology site, any place, any of our compost site, we have solar all over. And when it came to wind, I remember what happened with South Fork Wind when everyone sued South Fork Wind and East Hampton, if you remember that. And I said to Orsted and my good friend Billy Hoagland, he's over there, hey, there we go. I said, Orsted comes 990 megawatts, the largest project ever. You will not have any lawsuits. You will not have any objections. And you can run right through the middle of the town of Brookhaven, which is exactly what they're doing. They're coming up on Smith Point and running right through William Floyd, right over to Holtzville, just past the movie theater. And they're going there. And that's 900 megawatts, 990 megawatts of power. We're going to do that too. And you know, there's only one thing that is LIPA here? No, they're not. But maybe NYSERDA can help. Because our ability to do solar is limited by a number of things. One is our substations are totally inadequate. So when I want to hook up, for example, we're closing our landfill, we want to put solar all over the landfill. And we were supposed to have a deal with NYSERDA. But we're limited because LIPA can't provide a substation that we can plug into because their substations haven't been upgraded.
Thank you,
that's the problem.
County Executive. You can just wrap up quickly.
Right?
You just wrap up quickly, County Executive.
So, yes, at a local level, you can do solar, you can do wind, you can do land purchases to prevent flooding in the future. And we are going to have flooding because sea levels are rising. And we are concerned because we live on an island. But you know what? You're going to make the difference because you are taking the time to educate yourself and get involved and argue for the future of the island. You're going to do that. I'm not going to be here for the future. Steve either. We wish we would have a long life, but we're going to age out and you have to take up the cause because climate change is real. And you could say it's a natural occurrence, or you can blame it on fossil fuel or a whole host of other things. But the bottom line is we've got to deal with the consequences of it now. And the more we delay, the more we will suffer in the short run. Now's the time to take action. Actually, yesterday was the time to take action. So thank you for being here. I'm counting on you because you're the ones that are going to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, County Executive.
Thank you. So, you know, what can we do as government officials? What can you do in your place in life? There's a kind of a common theme here. You see everyone here, and I consider all these people colleagues. We've worked together. You know, you hear a lot about the political divide. There shouldn't be, really. You should have differences of opinions, not based on party affiliation. You should have differences of opinions based on the facts and what you're trying to promote and what you want your community to look like. And I think what you see here is people who have all worked together in the past and will continue to work together on different issues at different levels of government. So I think this is very encouraging to start with. When I was your age, I grew up in Peconic, and there was a proposal to build nuclear power plants in Jamesport on Long Island Sound. And the utility company owned all that farmland there north. There's a very nice Halleck State Park there now. And the utility company had bought all that land. And if you drive down Sanin Avenue, it all looks like farmland, but they had grand plans. And the farming community at the time, this is back in the 1970s, was very upset because if they had built nuclear power plants there, it would have been the end of the industry of agriculture on Long Island, because any kind of hint of radioactivity, and that would have been it for any kind of crops that were grown, whether it was true or not, it would have killed the market. People would have been afraid that the food that was being produced there was unsafe. And so the farming community, Long Island Farm Bureau, everybody got together and fought the utility. In the end, Governor Pataki really stepped in and made sure that all that land was preserved. There's a beautiful state park along the Sound, and there's all those farms that have been preserved on the north side of Sound Avenue. But the point is, the community engaged, they knew what was best for the community, and they acted. And I remember that because I was your age, and I went to college and I got a degree in plant science, and never thought I'd go into politics or government or anything like that. My high school chemistry teacher asked me to run. And there was also someone who was in government at the time, Paul Stoutenberg, and he was very concerned about what was happening to our wild lands and our creeks and our bays. And they asked me to run and to get involved. And some of you remember Paul, of course. And there's people like that care about the community, and then they reached out to young people. So the common theme here is you are our replacements. You need to get involved, go to town hall, write to your different levels of government, email us, let us know what you think. Besides the fact that we're spending your money, we're also impacting the future world that you're going to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. As a former teacher and a former administrator, I love when I see high school students and young individuals participate in what we call civic engagement. All you're hearing right now is about what can local government do when there's a political shift in the federal government. Well, you're seeing it right here, as you heard it from my other colleagues, is the way to do it is by working together at the local level, by bringing supporters, by bringing businesses, by bringing labor, by bringing community organizations, these state agencies who are here to support the efforts that we're trying to do at the local and state level. At the state level in 2019, we passed one of the most progressive pieces of legislation, which is the Climate Protection Act. And from that is really coming down to how much emissions we're going to be executing here in the state of New York and bringing it down to a level by 2030. And Harrison, I believe it's 40%. I forget the numbers, but by 2030, we have to bring down the amount of carbon emissions that we are emitting here in the state of New York. So we are trying to do everything that we can at the state in order for us to be able to have a future that is clean. Also in 2024, the governor signed what was known as the Suffolk County Water Quality Restoration Act, which was a combination between the state and the local level, meaning Suffolk County and the state had to work collaboratively on this in order for the referendum to be placed on the ballot for voters to vote on this, which will allow us to have better sewer systems and cleaner water here on Long Island. But it was only for Suffolk County, so Nassau County has to do their part. But this was a concerted effort between the county executive, the legislature, myself, and the rest of the state legislature, and that was signed into law in 2024. And now the county will take over what happens with that. But you'll see that the only way that we can move forward in ensuring that climate change is addressed, regardless of political shifts, is by working together at the local level. So again, thank you for being here today, and I look forward to continued conversation.
Thank you, State Senator. And I believe it's 70% renewable electricity by 2030, which is definitely a big goal, just 5 years away. State Senator, we're actually going to stick with you. I know you're looking for a break there. You all six talk about projects, environmental, climate, energy projects that you've seen during your time in government as an elected official. How have you made an impact in those projects moving forward? And how can the 300 students here today continue to work with the 6 of you as well as other electeds to move the needle on climate in the years to come?
Thank you. And I'm going to have to call you out because Harrison came to my office about 5 years ago. I don't know how old you were then, but you were in high school. And he came with the group of students to my office with a piece of legislation
about solar. And they advocated, and at the end of the day, I signed on to that piece of legislation. And it was his efforts, along with the other students that he came with, to advocate for this and push for this legislation. He said, look, this is our future. And the only ones that can really understand the future is those of you who are living the present right now. You know what is happening every single day of your lives, and you see the good and the bad and the in-between. And it is you who will determine if you want to see that good continue and if you want to see that bad seized. And your voice, believe it or not, it is the strongest thing that you have. And when you turn 18 and you register to vote, your voice will have even a stronger sense in what happens in this state and across our nation and across our world. Students and young individuals have led so many social movements here in our country, from civil rights to voting rights to every single possible right that we have today, have been led by young individuals, by student activists. And by activists, that's not a bad word. It is an advocate. When you are active, you are advocating for something that you want. And it is because of individuals such as yourselves that we will see continued progress in this great state, this state of New York. So be involved. You heard it from all of us already here. Go to your civic meetings, go to your chamber meetings, go to your school library meetings, believe it or not, go to your school board meetings, because that's where it's all about, at the local level. And don't say, well, I didn't know about it. It's very easy to say, I don't know. But it's a lot better when you become informed and you're an educated individual. The one thing my mother always said to me, the one thing that no one can ever take away from you is your education and how much knowledge you have. Because no one can say you don't know when in fact you do. So become active, go to community events. There are always things around. Go to your local elected officials, see what else is there, see what they're doing. There are a whole bunch of cleanups taking place for Earth Day. Go clean up a creek. All right, there's so many issues with our waterways right now that you can get down there and clean it up yourselves along with other individuals. So keep it up. But you're the ones that hold the power now.
Thank you, State Senator. Appreciate the shout out. We actually have information on the Students for Solar Act. We're hoping to get it passed this year at the Students for Climate Action table in the back. And now over to Supervisor Krupski, the same question. How can you really move the needle?
Oh, thank you. And that was a good answer. I was listening to all of it. So I see students here, and someone said they're from Southold, but I saw a Mattituck sweatshirt. Okay, because last year, and I know Mattituck and Southold high schools both have like an audio video department, and some students came in to town hall and they recorded some of the department heads, because a lot of people don't know, even adults don't know what government does. So you're the head of DPW. What do? You run the dump. What do? You run the highway department. What do? You're the town clerk. What do? And it was very informative for the students to come in and do that. We're going to repeat that again with other department heads. We're also working with our economic development committee on student internships in town hall and in businesses, just to give students a little bit of insight into how government works. And it's not exciting, but you should know how government works, because it helps to inform you of why things are the way they are. And then you're not afraid to say that maybe the way they are isn't the greatest thing in the world. Maybe it could be better because, and it gets you to think about, because you know the mechanics, that way things could get better. So, and that's really up to you to do your homework, to be informed, and then to see things in the community that could be better. And the Girl Scouts came to us last year, and they wanted to put up, because there's a law against releasing those ridiculous balloons. And we have a farm in Peconic, and we find those balloons all over the farm fields. And those balloons are also making their way into the creeks and into the bay and to Long Island Sound, and they just become garbage. So, we worked with the Girl Scouts to put up signs at the road end saying, do not go here and release balloons. It's just basic education. And so there's things like that, but you have to come in, you have to get engaged, and you know, you have to pay attention. So this is the kind of thing that's very helpful.
Thank you, Supervisor. Mr. County Executive. How can youth stay engaged and move the needle on climate and the work that local governments do?
You stay engaged by caring about your local community. You don't have to guess. You don't have to read. Just walk around your local community. When I was a boy, I lived in Southold. I went swimming in the Great South Bay. I could walk up to my neck and see my feet. Can't do that today. So obviously things have changed. What you want to do is look around your community for opportunities to make that community better. How's recycling going? Not that good. The last landfill in this island is closing very shortly. It already closed the construction debris. Right now, it only takes, that's Brookhaven landfill, only takes construction debris and ash. Why ash? Because we have 4 waste-to-energy plants that burn garbage and turn it into energy, and the ash have to go somewhere because you never destroy matter. So look around, because recycling isn't working. And a lot of that has to do with the state of New York, because they should be passing legislation that would make recycling possible. For example, glass. There's no value for glass. It's cheaper to make new glass than to use old glass. But guess what? What's glass made of? Well, that's right, sand. Wow, if you crush that glass, which you can crush as fine as talcum powder, you could use it as an aggregate in concrete and asphalt, with building blocks like behind me. But does the state legislation incentivize that? No. So not too far away on this campus on the other side is the DEC, the regional office for Nassau Suffolk. They should be more engaged in creating markets for recycling, and we should concentrate on having a solid waste management plan for Nassau and Suffolk County, which is truly lacking. And that's something that you should think about, because each of us produce about 4.5 pounds to 5 pounds of garbage a day. It's got to go somewhere. And if we could recycle more of that, we won't have to landfill, or we won't have to ship it. Because right now, you either burn it at these waste-to-energy plants, and then we have to figure out what to do with the ash, or you ship it off the island to other landfills in other areas like Seneca Falls or Pennsylvania or wherever. That's not a solution for garbage. A solution for garbage is to recycle as much as you possibly can and to compost whenever you can. So can you get involved? Yeah, absolutely. And we can work with our State Senator Monica Martinez and our other state representatives to get. She was extremely helpful, by the way, with the water bill. I want to mention that. Thank you so much. Because the wastewater is another problem. But we have to start thinking about how we solve our problems. The more we sweep them under the rug, the more it's going to come back and bite us. So, yeah, you can get involved locally. Do what you can, whenever you can. And there are people that will help you. And a lot of the people at this table are the people that can help you and work with you to create programs so that we have a better island, whether it be recycling, whether it be wastewater, whether it be rising sea level or storms. We've had more drastic storms because of that. I know I'm out of time. I'll just mention one thing. 10 years ago, we didn't have any southern pine beetle here on Long Island. They're here 10 years. And in 10 years, they have devastated our pine barrens. And I'm on the Pine Barrens Commission. And every time I drive by, particularly when I go to Amagansett, I cry to think of all the dead pine trees that these beetles are killing. And I can't believe we can't come up with a solution to deal with it. But they're only here because the only thing that kills them is cold temperature. And our temperatures are rising. In fact, we've had the warmest temperatures in the Earth's recorded history in the last 4 or 5 years. What does that tell you about climate change? Thank you.
Thank you, County Executive. Legislator Englebright.
So I think there is no single thing that you can do. There are many things that you can do. And you should take advantage of opportunities to inform yourselves, be as educated as possible on topics, and then get involved. It's not for somebody else, it's for you. It's for your loved ones, it's for your community, it's for everything you care about, for you to get involved and take advantage of the society that we have, which allows for free expression and for involvement like this. Don't miss that bus. It's important that you get on that bus and move forward. We're in a crisis. You hear the county executive speaking of the pine beetle. We have the same thing going on in our marine waters. We used to have lobsters here. It's too warm. The waters are too warm. And they have moved north. To find lobsters now, you have to go into northern New England to the offshore waters. So all politics is local, and all progress begins at the local level. I urge you to hold us, those of us who have responsibilities through our elected offices, hold us responsible. Be aware, there is in New York State the strongest law in the land. It sets mandates for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and it's greenhouse gas, of course, that is driving the global climate change, warming our oceans, bringing invasive species like pine beetles up into our latitude. So reducing greenhouse gas emissions, which is the goal of the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. I was the prime sponsor of that. We passed it 3 times in the Assembly before it passed in the Senate. But we're grateful, Monica, thank you for helping it to pass. We're grateful that it was signed into law in 2019. Hold us responsible to the goals. Know what they are. The goals are to have a orderly and just transition from the use of fossil fuels to the use of renewables. And we have thresholds that are built into that law. 100% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions used for electricity by the year 2040, and a 40% reduction by 2030. Hold us to that. Make sure we don't slip. Further, 3 years ago, we passed a constitutional amendment it's called the Green Amendment to the New York State Constitution. I was pleased to be the sponsor of that as well. It passed overwhelmingly, and it guarantees that every citizen of the state has the right in constitutional law to clean air and a healthful environment. Make sure that you use that power. Make sure that you have that constitutional right before you as you speak to your local officials and as you get involved. You can make a difference. In fact, without you, we're not going to be able to make progress on any of these things.
Thank you, Legislator. Legislator Sanin.
It's so hard to say all the things I want to say in 2 minutes, so I'm going to talk as quickly as I can. And so starting from the small things that you can do, it's the things that you do every day, right? Making sure that you're recycling. If you eat more of a plant-based diet, you're addressing the loss of biodiversity and greenhouse gases as well, emissions. Make sure that you are picking up after your dog. If you have a dog and you don't pick up their waste, that's impacting our groundwater. It's very small things that you can do. Talking to your parents about energy efficient appliances in your home. These things make a difference, and each of us have the power to do that. But let me move back to policy now. One of the things that we don't talk about enough is that climate change and environmental issues become public health issues and public safety issues very quickly. We live in one of the top 10 most segregated regions in the entire nation. And that means zip code often determines people's outcomes from a health perspective, from an educational perspective, and from a life perspective. And quite frankly, we have communities all across our region that are disadvantaged when it comes to overabundance of pollution, when it comes to rates of asthma. These are things you need to consider as you become policymakers yourselves, as you engage in your advocacy. What is happening in our community impacts all of us. That's the lesson of COVID, right? We all do better when we all do better. If any corner of our community is hurting, it impacts all of us. And there are many communities in our larger region that are hurting and that are feeling the impacts of climate change and the impacts of environmental disregard very significantly. We need to think of those folks when we are planning. A third thing I want to remind you of, how many of you have one of these phones? Raise your hand. Right? These are great for communicating. So making sure that you are communicating the important environmental things you want your friends and your neighbors to do when you are on social media. That is a positive thing that you can use social media for. But it's also really important to shut these off. And let me tell you why. All the research shows that children will not save what they don't love. And there's no way we can fall in love with nature and the magic of nature if we're not outside, if we're always walking around like this. And so make sure you take time to shut them off and get involved in your natural world, experiencing the magic of nature. And the last thing I will say to you is this: raise your hand if you watch the news or you read the news. Okay, a lot of you do. It can feel very, very challenging these days when you care about climate change and the environment to watch the news. So here's what I would say to you. Tune out the noise and then tune into your power. You have amazing, amazing power to change the course of history and to change the course of policy here in this region. That is why you are all here early in the morning, because you care, because your heart is very much committed to the environment. Use that power. Don't disregard it. Tune out the noise and then tune into the incredible things that you can get done when you work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator. Deputy Supervisor.
I'm going to be very direct with all of you in the room. Youth has the power to make change and determine the world that you want to live in. You have that power now. You don't have to wait to go into the future or to change in any way. Youth power, while it takes a village to change things, the power of youth is the strongest voices and power of those villages. I've seen it firsthand in growing up in America. In not only policy changes, and when we talk about all the policy changes that these great folks who listen to your voices, those were made because of you, because of the youth that came before us and let us know this is our future. You're messing with our future. We own it. You own it. Protect it. Stand up for it. Use the power of your voices and your vote, and get involved in any way that you can. And it's really sometimes hard to do it alone. You look for places, well, how am I going to do this? Well, organizations like Harrison's organization, students, for anything, any organization, you can amplify all of your messages by joining and never stop. There were two things that I was brought up with. One was an old adage from a trillion years ago when I was young, was if you don't have anything nice, don't say anything. And upon reflection, as I became older and older and older, that only works for the folks in control. That's what people want you to do. Shh. So don't do it. Speak up. Use your voices, the power you have now. The major ideology shifts, cultural shifts that have happened in this country have happened by youth movements. So I know it sounds like maybe scary to some folks, but there's another adage that I grew up with, and that was from my parents, who said, rarely is anyone successful on the first time they try anything. It's the persistence and the continued effort. And as my father would always say, second effort, third effort, fourth effort. We need you. We need to hear your voices, to have it go through all the distractions that happen in our daily days. We're hitting like 5 million things. It's amazing. And then after I found my voice and became an advocate for the climate crisis, and I learned about policies and I lobbied for the policy changes, the other thing that struck me, and I hope it strikes all of you, is that I really wanted to, at one point, become the decision maker so I could be the yes vote on these changes. So please consider making your advocacy a career in your lives. Thank you all.
Thank you, Deputy Supervisor. Well, we are almost out of time, but in keeping with the theme of empowering youth voices, does anyone in the audience have a question for our panel? Yes. How does each level of government affect the climate crisis? Maybe we have one, we have Senator Martinez quickly. How does each level of government impact the climate crisis? A succinct answer maybe from Senator Martinez, and then maybe one speaker from our representatives from local government.
Just to make sure, you're asking how local and state government affects climate change? Well, we hope we're not worsening it, because if we are worsening it, then we have a problem. And we are seeing certain political shifts, but that's why we need to work together at the local level, right? Political shifts should not determine what happens locally. And it could also be that sometimes you'll see political shifts at the local level, but then another level of government needs to step in, right? So regardless of what one level is doing, the other ones can make up for it, which is what we're seeing right now in the state of New York and Suffolk County.
Thank you.
That was a good question. You should run for office, man. Very good. So there's different levels of government with different jurisdictions. There are many overlapping jurisdictions. And the example I can think of is the federal government had to enable the wind farms that you see offshore that are producing electricity. But then it was the county government that had to work with the companies and the federal government to enable the cables to come through the county park at Smith Point to go through into the town of Brookhaven so they could use that power. The state government was actually very involved with all the environmental review, and the town of Brookhaven government was involved also because it involved going through their town and tearing up all the roads and everything. So that's an example of 4 different levels of government working together on one project to accomplish the same goal. So there are many relationships like that. Sometimes you have jurisdiction over one thing and that's it, and other jurisdictions do not have any influence. They could have influence if they lobby, but they don't have the jurisdiction. In that case, there were 4 different levels of government working together.
Wonderful. Thank you. And with that, we are unfortunately out of time. So let's give it up for our wonderful elected officials. Thank you so much for joining us. We know your schedules are busy. If anyone has any more questions, you can reach out to them maybe on their way out or find their emails online. But thank you all so much for joining us today.